Okay. So today is October 1st, October 8th. Um, and this is some information about consciousness. The focus today for me, and what I'm doing is still building an awareness and a kind of an inner network of facts and experiences, inner experiences that will then we'll be able to use those when we do our final healing meditation on the Pacific herself. So I'm just going to say a few facts here. And these are facts that, probably you and Walter have read, or Susan, you and Walter have read, and maybe Leisha, because it comes from Consciousness and Energy, Volume 2. But this is a piece of the putting together of how to understand who you are and what your capacities are. So the original source of everything is mind space. Mind, M-I-N-D, space. So mind and space are like two sides of one coin. Mind is the awareness property of space. In other words, space is alive, it's aware. And space is the location aspect of mind. So mind and space are infinitely expandable, and that's why we have the ongoing expansion of the universe, because the universe actually comes from, or the cosmos comes from, or emanates from mind space, which is expanding as needed to accommodate everything that is ever said, done, or thought within it. Forever. It holds that forever. When mind space begins to move, it becomes consciousness and energy. Two sides of another coin, but it's a more evolved coin. Consciousness is the feeling aspect of energy. And energy is the motion of consciousness. Consciousness and energy are infinitely creative and powerful, and it is the nature of consciousness to create. So once we evolve into consciousness, we can't help but create, for good or for ill. We are going to make something happen. When consciousness and energy begin to compress and coalesce, it becomes intelligence and particles. Intelligence is the information aspect of a particle. And a particle is the signaling center of that intelligence, of that little bit of intelligence. Intelligence and particles are infinitely cooperative. They're going to work with one another. They're going to communicate. So when intelligence and particles begin to organize, there's another evolutionary leap into becoming thought and patterns. So thought is actually the maintenance property of a pattern. And the pattern actually demonstrates the sequence of thoughts that created it. With that in mind, we can say that thought and patterns can be maintained indefinitely, which means that we have the capacity to become eternal, which means that we have the capacity to restore the original thought and pattern and heal anything. So keep in mind that there is no death, there's only life. So now what I'd like to do is take us on a little journey. There's some other information and bits and pieces here that are on the paper that I will forward to you, Walter, when we're done. But the thing that I think is most important is the teacup dictation. And even if you have read that, it's important to experience it. So if everybody would just get comfortable and relax your body. Take a couple of deep breaths, and a deep, full controlled breaths, and then just breathe at your own pace. So we're going to take this little journey that repeats some of what we just said, but in a slightly different way. So close your eyes and just imagine that you are a teacup of water and you're floating in the depths of space. And that space is absolutely empty. It's black. It's endless. Just see yourself as that water and that teacup floating. And just kind of float in that blackness. And then feel the teacup tip right over, and you, the water, are flowing out of the teacup. Feel your entire self flowing out in every direction, filling space itself until you just become space. You're not just floating in space, you are space. You have no body. There are no other people. There's no planets, no wind, not even a speck of dust. There's no weather. There's no objects of any kind. Yesterday and tomorrow do not exist, and nor do any of your usual concerns about health, life, ethics, morality. There's no curiosity even. There are no questions. There's no sense of waiting, no worry, no boredom. You're just floating in that blackness. There's nothing to see and nothing to want. And to say that all needs are filled would be to miss the point, because there's no such thing as need. You're in a state of pure awareness. And the only awareness you have is, I am. Nothing more, nothing less. Because there's no one to complain to and nothing to wait for, this condition of basic awareness is a state of complete and total fulfillment. It is ecstasy in existence. You are mind. You are space. Silent, peaceful, at rest. With nothing but the awareness that you exist. Mind is the awareness property of space, whose only attribute is awareness. And so you are total awareness, an endless, silent, peaceful, blissful ocean of space. And then suddenly a force comes rolling through you, pulling and pushing and moving and lifting you, creating waves and whirls and eddies in what was formerly total stillness. The power of this force transforms you into vibrant, shimmering motion. And from now on, you will go by a new name. You have evolved into energy. And in your conversion from space into energy, you leave the silence of awareness with its single knowing, I am, and you enter the condition of consciousness. In doing so, you move from the silence of pure existence to the experience of I am, and something is happening to me. You are now aware of two separate things: that you exist and movement. You have taken the first step away from the quiet bliss of oneness, and you have moved into the energy of consciousness, of duality. As energy, you're a sea of motion, and you will wend your way as a wave, fluid, swift, shimmering, vibrating, undulating and tumbling at different speeds and in different directions, on and on, endlessly moving, wrinkling, pinching, and even fiercely stretching the fabric of your being. And as your intensity mounts, the power of your own seething increases until in some areas you become densely compressed. Your motion slows down. You can hardly move at all. You feel compacted and pressed, heavy and solid. And suddenly, you realize you are no longer just energy moving crisply about. You will have edges, boundaries. You will have transformed again, now into a particle. As a particle, you feel weighty and massive. Your body floats along on the waves of energy that weave and churn endlessly through space. You are definitely different, a tiny speck of matter with mass and dimensions, and yet you are still aware that you exist, and you are still conscious and in motion. And now you are a physical form with those unique boundaries of yours, a specific spin, the cycles of movement, and possibilities you could not have imagined before this transformation. So you drift and float and spin, carried on the waves of conscious energy, back and forth, up and down, this way and that, until, without warning, you collide with something and discover there are others. Your path and those of neighboring particles have crossed in a head-on way. Collisions abound, and you're bombarded from every side. Some just hit and bounce away. Others drift nearby, just outside your boundaries, while still others cling to you, changing your speed, your weight, your direction, even your very sense of self. And as you attempt to deal with this new state of being and its situation, you discover that the characteristics of your mind have also changed once more. You are communicating. And what you communicate is information and intelligence about yourself. What you are, how you move, what you're capable of, and where you're trying to get to. As the communication builds, you realize that you have been swept into fields of tangled and densely compacted waves, accompanied by an assortment of other particles. You all huddle about, unable to swim back through that fine, frothy net of wave frequencies to where the rolling waves of energy swell and dip gently. Being together, you begin to communicate with one another, signaling your presence and what kind of motion you're capable of. At times, you remember the quiet bliss of pure existence, or you long for the wide open freedom of the open waves. You remember the joys of a simpler consciousness, but you are here with all these others, and communication is required if you are to avoid chaos and destruction, or evolve enough to be drawn into a place that is a little less pressured. And so you communicate and cooperate, and slowly you realize you are changing again. You no longer feel like a single particle caught in a net of energy waves. Instead, you are one of many particles, now communicating and working together as one being, and you feel like you are that whole being. Together, you form a unique pattern of particles, fields, and waves of frequency, communicating and cooperating in an exquisitely balanced arrangement to see what else you can do or become. And as before, with the transformation to that new state of being called a pattern, you find your mind has also transformed once more. You no longer have the relatively simple intelligence of a single particle. You are part of a powerful and highly interactive process called thought. Millions of particles gathered together into one composite pattern gives the whole group of you access to an immense amount of intelligent thought. Thought that can be used to work together. Thought that can be used to maintain yourselves. Thought that can be used to reproduce what you have created together. You realize that your pattern contains all the knowledge needed to begin creating, and that other patterns, even when vastly different from your own, have the same knowledge and capacity. You set about looking for those patterns that you especially enjoy, those that you can learn from, and you hold a secret dream of being able to connect with those other patterns in a way that will perhaps create the feeling of joyous movement, communication, and cooperation in new ways. Ways that will allow you to maintain and help others maintain an eternal existence of perfectly balanced energies, particles, and patterns. If you now look back, you will see that you began as undifferentiated mind space with only the simple awareness of your existence. And yet that awareness is the foundation of your entire existence. You then began to move as a wave of conscious energy and to experience the feelings and the motions of duality and all of the possibilities. Next, you suffered the pressures of transformation to the state of being known as a particle, with its inherent intelligence and knowledge of the self as an individual form. And then you metamorphosed into an exquisitely complex pattern capable of thought and the ability to maintain the self via that thought. So now keep this knowledge of how we move from source to a physical world with you as you begin returning to the present moment. Be aware that the nature of your existence is such that you have the capacity to recognize and to know all things, to communicate with all things, and to help restore the original thought of all things, thus healing and being healed as needed. Keep one toe in that original pool of peace that is still and silent in the center of you, and yet move through your days with zest and vibrant, shimmering energy. Send a small message or thought to our friend, the great Pacific Ocean, and tell her that you have not forgotten her, have not abandoned her, and that you are merely gathering the energies needed to help her restore her own healthy patterns, and thus to heal herself. Imagine dipping your finger in her waters, and flowing out from your fingertip is a stream of great love to comfort and hold her in the meantime. Let that love flow for a moment. and then return your full attention to the room you are sitting in. Stretch and take a few moments to fully return to the meeting. Welcome back.